What do the king, these houses and hobbits have in common? Well, if you guessed it, it's the arts and crafts design style. I know you're probably looking at me like, but don't worry, because today we're examining what the hell I'm talking about and is the arts and crafts movement really coming back? And if you're new here, hi, I'm Jacqueline, I'm an interior designer, and here we talk about interior design, home decor, if you hadn't already guessed, art and even architecture, so let's jump in. Now, why do I think the arts and crafts movement is coming back? Well, last week I saw this tweet basically highlighting the new Poundbury housing development in Dorset, England. This development was proposed by King Charles and construction started in 1993, and construction is still going on to this day and looking to be completed in 2028. If you didn't know, King Charles is known for disapproving of post-war trends in town planning, especially those that eradicated green spaces or any sort of architectural interest. But why is this housing development and town so innovative, even though it looks like a very normal old English village? Now, I'm not going to dwell on the whole town planning aspect of it all because that could be a whole documentary in itself, really. But for those that haven't been to the UK, a lot of Britain actually looks like this. And that's mainly due to post-war town planning and specifically the New Towns Act of 1946. The New Towns Act was brought in to urgently address the massive post-war housing shortage and bomb-damaged urban areas like London. And because of that, the result was a construction boom in the home counties surrounding London. Kind of a side note, but I actually grew up in Hertfordshire, which was almost like the epicenter of the start of the New Towns Act. And while some new town developments tried to take elements from the Garden City movement, the latter, which I personally think were successful, I don't think they ever quite accomplished what Ebenezer Howard envisioned. And because of that, towns built under the New Towns Act have kind of become this running joke here in the UK. Sorry, but it's kind of true. They're a bit soulless, sterile, and kind of these eerie developments that no one goes to anymore. And instead, people end up going to the local shopping malls or retail parks instead. For those in North America, a retail park is kind of like a strip mall. Yeah, I think so. They did have some criticism at the time they were proposed, mainly by local residents and some politicians, because they wanted to create these kind of concrete jungles that were car-centric, but with very specified pedestrianised town centres. But nonetheless, they went ahead anyway. And then to top it off, then came 1960s brutalism, which was devastating for parts of British architecture. If you love brutalism, that's fine. You're sadistic, but that's fine. Anyway, all this to say that the concrete developments from the 50s and 60s haven't fared well, and I think these new housing developments that implement traditional classical architectural styles are of course a lot better than what we currently have now. And don't get me started on the new build developments we have in the UK. So yes, I do think reintroducing older architectural styles like the arts and crafts style in Poundbury, you let me know if I'm saying that wrong. I do think that's a good idea, and I think it will completely change the face of new houses in the UK. Plus, when you pair beautiful homes with places like local parks and actually design communities that prioritise pedestrians and local shops, you're just creating places that people actually want to live in. And I think that's a good thing. And I think this is really just the start of arts and crafts coming back. I think with the rejection of things like millennial grey, people are going to reclaim past styles that were more intricate in nature. I think we'll see a real hunger for soul and craftsmanship again. People are tired from having to choose from cookie-cutter boxes that feel sterile, in the inside or on the outside, and that's whether you're in North America or the UK or wherever around the world you're watching from. We all have our own versions of new build monstrosities. By leaning back into that arts and crafts philosophy, we're not just building houses, we're building actual neighbourhoods that prioritise beauty and nature. So what were the original arts and crafts principles? The arts and crafts movement was essentially a 19th century design rebellion against the Industrial Revolution. While factories were busy churning out soulless, mass-produced clutter, visionaries like William Morris and Charles Ashby were advocating for a return to hand-built integrity. The architects and designers of the movement believed that things in our home should have a soul, celebrating visible, rugged craftsmanship over factory-line production. A huge part of this aesthetic's DNA actually came directly from the pre-Raphaelite art movement. These artists were obsessed with a romanticised medieval past, favouring deep natural colours and intricate botanical patterns. They rejected the mechanical look of the Renaissance in favour for something more raw and atmospheric. And for those Lord of the Rings fans out there, if you didn't know, Bag End is actually an arts and crafts building, fitting into the ideas of the designer William Morris and others in the period between 1880 and 1920. I have a whole video on Hobbit architecture and interiors, so if you missed it, I'll link it somewhere here. You really can't discuss British arts and crafts without discussing some of the most influential people of the style. William Morris, Philip Webb, Charles Rennie Mackintosh and Bailey Scott. These guys were the architects and artists that fundamentally changed how we think about and look at British homes. While in America, the people that steered the American version of the style were Gustav Stickley, Green and Green, and believe it or not, even Frank Lloyd Wright. Or rather, should I say Marion Mahoney Griffin? Okay Google, play The Man by Taylor Swift.
I would be complex, I would be cool.
In America, arts and crafts architecture morphed into its own design style, the American Craftsman style. If you're looking at these two side by side, the biggest difference is really the materials and proportion. The British one feels like a romantic medieval-inspired cottage, whereas the American Craftsman is much more about that rugged California bungalow approach. In the UK, architects like Webb and Mackintosh loved vertically steep gables and intricate hand-painted botanical details that felt almost like a storybook. Across the pond, the American movement went horizontal, focusing on low-slung rooflines and wide, welcoming porches that really hug the landscape. And personally, I actually prefer the American version. Oh my god. Because it actually took a lot of inspiration from Japanese architecture, and that's coming from Henry Green himself. In 1893, the Green brothers agreed to stop by the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago and saw a few examples of Japanese architecture which influenced them greatly. And anyone who knows me knows that I love Japanese design. I just think it's so naturalistic and I love the amount of wood used structurally. Anyway, let me stop before this becomes a Japanese architecture video essay. But like I was saying, along with proportions, materials tell the story too. While here in Britain they were using a lot of red brick and thick oak, the Americans leaned into chunky river rock and warm, heavy hardwoods like redwood or Douglas fir. Ultimately, the UK version was a philosophical art movement for the soul. And I think that comes across in its storybook-like quality. There was a very ornate quality about them, while the American version became its more practical twin, with low-pitched roofs, wide porches and built-in furniture designed for everyday living. I hope that clears it up. If you're currently living in a greige purgatory where every wall looks like a different shade of a wet bowl of porridge, I have some news for you. It's time to pick a colour. But a word of warning, put down the neon and high gloss paint. This movement is allergic to anything that looks like it's come out of a lab. It's all about the most natural look possible. And to an extent, calming too. When it comes to an arts and crafts colour palette, think nature. We're talking mossy greens, warm ochres, deep russets, and those moody browns that feel like they've stepped out of a forest. It's a palette that says, I have a home library and I definitely know how to identify an endangered fern. That being said, the majority of your home should actually rely on rich, warm tones brought out by wooden textures. and colour brought in by using bold colours around it or by including wallpapers. However, if you're not a fan of bold colours or wallpaper on the walls, stick with an uber warm beige for around the panelling and bring in colour-soaked furniture instead. When it comes to the surface of your home, we're officially retiring that sad, flat plasterboard look. The arts and craft movement basically invented the original nature core aesthetic, but with a lot more structural integrity. We're talking about those iconic, dense botanical wallpapers, patterns so intricate they'd make a minimalist have a stroke. If your wallpaper doesn't look like an overgrown English garden where a forest nymph might be hiding, you're kind of doing it wrong. Designers like William Morris, Annie Garnett, and CFA Voicey are a great starting point if you're looking for pattern designs. If you want to instantly anchor a room in the arts and crafts aesthetic, we need to talk about wainscoting. But we aren't talking about the flimsy, waist-high beadboard style that you'd find in a modern farmhouse build. True Craftsman wainscoting is a dominant architectural feature, typically stretching at least 3/4 of the wall up. As an interior designer, I love this technique because it completely shifts the room's proportions, and I find it really indicative of the arts and crafts style. To perfectly balance out the visual weight of that really rich heavy wood, you bring in the stained glass. In this movement, windows weren't just functional voids to let in a breeze, they were treated as illuminated canvases. Again, showcasing the craftsmanship. It's the perfect marriage of form and function. As a side note, if you're enjoying the video so far, please leave a like and hype the video. We really appreciate that. And if you want to connect and support us even further, think about joining our membership. If you're designing in this style with furniture, you can go either two ways. Stick with the original thick wooden furniture, which is very Hobbit-like. Or what I'm just assuming here is that you want the furniture to go with your arts and crafts home, but you also want to bring it into the 21st century. And if that's the case, let the room's architectural and decorative elements dictate the colour choice. As a designer, my favourite trick is to pull specific hues directly from your bold botanical wallpapers, intricate art pieces, or even the stained glass, and carry them straight into your upholstery. By anchoring modern silhouettes in that historic, moody palette, like a sleek velvet sofa in a deep moss green or an accent chair in a rich mustard yellow, drawn right from a patterned wall, you create a seamless visual bridge. It keeps the space feeling deeply connected to that arts and crafts philosophy, while also making sure everything is still functional and completely comfortable for how we live today. For lighting, I actually love a bit of a hodgepodge and mixing styles together, like throwing in some brass Art Deco style pendant lights or sconces. I think this just adds some depth to the design, and that's what I would personally do. In an arts and crafts interior, we're often working with a lot of harsh, heavy geometry. All those sharp 90-degree angles in the wainscoting, the boxy built-ins and structural timber, right? So to prevent the room feeling too rigid, we use lighting as the ultimate organic counterpoint. By introducing rounded glass fixtures, think globes with a soft milky finish or gently curved lanterns, you're essentially using light to soften the room's edges. These circular forms break up the repetitive lines of the woodwork and bringing a sense of flow and balance to the architecture. Home decor accessories are what bring an arts and crafts style interior to life. It's what makes the space feel grounded, but also beautifully tied to nature, and that's really important with this style. In this style though, accessories are never highly mass-produced or synthetic. It's all about looking like it's come from the maker's hand. You're wanting each piece to reflect true craftsmanship, and just some ideas I have for you are hand-hammered copper or brass bowls, Heliocene pottery, William Morris patterned tapestry pillows, oak mantel clocks, carved wooden frames with visible peg joinery, or gold for a modern look, wrought iron fireplace tools, woven rush baskets, fruit-themed paperweights, hand-pressed tiles featuring botanical motifs like acorns or oak leaves, a backgammon set, abstract ceramic sculptures, mother-of-pearl boxes, wildlife motifs, Moroccan rugs, and vintage brass mirrors. The arts and crafts movement did in fact have its own style of garden, often using the idea of garden rooms to bring the home outdoors. But if you're wanting to design your own garden but you're not really sure where or how to start, I actually just made a video about that, so I'll leave it linked somewhere here. However, for the inside of the home, ferns are the obvious arts and crafts pick, lush and a little dramatic. Add in something like snowball blooms or even a few poppies and you get that soft, slightly wild touch. Hanging pothos is the modern rule breaker here. It's not strictly period reflective, but that waterfall greenery effect relaxes all those clean lines. If you've gone all in on Morris & Co wallpaper that's got more flora and fauna than the bloody Amazon rainforest, for the love of Morris, put the hammer down. You don't need a lot of wall art in that case, if any, to be honest with you, because the wallpaper itself is the art. Or alternatively, if your walls are mainly wainscoting with just one colour, choose frames that match your wainscoting, the same wood tone, then fill them with classic art prints so it feels intentional. The goal is a seamless built-in look where the art feels like part of the architecture, and also enforcing that naturalistic approach to the movement. It's all about creating a curated look that says, I spend my weekends reading books, non-fiction books by candlelight, when in reality we both know that you're going to be watching reality TV on a very expensive handcrafted chair. And that's fine. What's wrong with that? But what do you think about arts and crafts homes? Are you a purist or do you prefer more of the modern approach to the style? Let me know below. Please leave a like and hype the video if you enjoyed it. I really appreciate that, and it does really help to grow the channel. And if you need help fulfilling your own design dreams, I've left our website in the description. If you want to keep the design inspiration flowing, I've left another video on the next part that I think you'll enjoy. Bye guys!